All right. Welcome to another episode of Speaking of Gothic, and I'm also doing this for my YouTube channel, Writing Gothic. So if you watch the YouTube channel, then you'll get this information, you'll see the visuals. And if you're on the podcast, you won't see the visuals, but you still get the same information. So that's why I said, welcome to Speaking of Gothic. And for those of you who don't know, if you listen to Speaking of Gothic, I also have an adjacent writing channel, YouTube channel called Writing Gothic. But today, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite genre horror films, and they are vampire and werewolf movies. So I'm not going to go into every little nuance of these movies. I'm just going to kind of list them, and then this way you can go check them out for yourself and see if you like them. Some you've probably seen and heard of. Others are probably maybe more obscure. I've seen everyone on my list with the exception of one maybe. And I hope you don't hear that airplane going overhead, but when you record at home, that's what happens. You're going to get so if there's a dog barking in this, I apologize. I'm not going to cut it out. All right, here we go. So for vampire movies, and these are in no particular order, although these first ones are my favorites. But let's go right into it. So I have a lot of vampire movies listed here, and the first one is Fright Night from 1985. And this is a classic. If you love vampire movies and you've never seen this, you're doing yourself a disservice. Oh, also, all these movies do have that Gothic element. Now, some of them on the surface, as I've said before, they may not seem like Gothic movies, but every one of these movies has some of the Gothic tropes that I mentioned before, whether that be a certain Gothic environment, characters, in distress, creatures, werewolves, vampires, etc. Dark tones. So they all kind of fit my definition of the Gothic tropes. They may not fit yours, but since I've been talking about Gothic tropes on Speaking of Gothic and on the Writing Gothic channel, they all fit into that definition. And honestly, I think I kind of stretched the definition just a wee bit, but that's okay. All right, so here we go. Fright Night, 1985. And then here's another one of my favorites. Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1996. I love this movie. It's great. It's fabulous. Very operatic. 30 Days of Night from 2007. This is like a hardcore vampire film, but I think what, for me, gives it the Gothic element is the fact that the characters are isolated and they're in Alaska. It's fabulous. The Lost Boys from 1987. It's a little more modern Gothic, but definitely Gothic. Afflicted. This is from 2013, and this is a found footage vampire film. I haven't seen many found footage vampire films, but this is one, and it's great. Byzantium from 2012, directed by Neil Jordan, who directed Interview with a Vampire. So if you've seen Interview with a Vampire, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, you will know that he loves to create those Gothic environments, and Byzantium is no different. Even though it takes place in modern time, actually, it also takes place in the past. So very Gothic. Blade from 1998. If you've ever seen the first Blade, you know that, of course, the great Wesley Snipes, but it also has lots of Gothic hallmarks, and even the city is always sort of rain-shrouded and dark. So it's a great film. Stakeland, independent film from 2010. Its sequel is also on this list. The Last Voyage of the Demeter came out in 2023. Great movie. It's about that time period between when Dracula left Transylvania and when he went to London and when he's on the ship called the Demeter. Great film. Of course, you know how it ends, but it's just kind of cool getting there. And also awesome practical effects. Innocent Blood from 1992. This was directed by John Landis, who directed one of the other films on this list, which I'll talk about in the werewolf genre. Let Me In, 2010, which is a remake of Let the Right One In, the Swedish film. I love both the films. I think I like this one, not just because it's in English, but because it just feels like it gets to the plot a little quicker. And I read the book, which was very disturbing. But anyway, it's a great film, great remake. That's how you do a remake, Let Me In. From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez and written by Quentin Tarantino. 1986, great film. It's weird. It starts out as a crime thriller, and then it switches about an hour in, or the last act is a vampire movie, and you get no inkling that that's going to happen, but it's fabulous. All right, here's another one. Only Lovers Left Alive from 2013. This stars Tom Hiddleston from Loki. And I cannot remember the other lady's name, but she's the one who played not the Sorcerer Supreme, but the ancient one in the Doctor Strange movies. Tilda Swinton, that's it. Dracula 2000 from 2000. This is a guilty pleasure. Stars a young Gerard Butler as Dracula, and it's an interesting twist for how he became Dracula. So, it's kind of cheesy, but I just love it, and the atmosphere is super gothic. Daybreakers, starring Ethan Hawke from 2009. Love that film. Love it. It's really great, and it's got a really unique twist on the vampire mythology. Blade 2, here we go, directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it's a fabulous film. Here's another guilty pleasure of mine, Dracula Untold. I love this film. I don't know who directed it, but it's kind of like an action vampire movie. It's when Universal tried to do their horror monsters and, all these different movies, they were going to do that. But it's a guilty pleasure. I like it. Underworld from 2003. And then we're going to go down. Underworld Evolution, 2006. And these came out after The Matrix, so they have that sort of leather gothic aesthetic, but they're great. Now, here's my personal favorite from this series of films, because there's like 5 films, I think. I didn't see the most recent one. It was, I saw the previews, but I didn't really watch it. But Underworld, Rise of the Lycans. This film kind of straddles the line because it's mostly about the werewolves, but there's vampires that have been enslaving the men that turn into werewolves. So that's why they call it Rise of the Lycans. It's about this rebellion. And this takes place in some sort of alternate world. But what I love about it is that it's very gothic. It's very medieval. And the vampire, the transformations aren't that great, but the werewolf effects are amazing. I mean, I just love this movie. Out of all the Underworld series, this is the one that I go back to and I watch again and again. Van Helsing. All right, Van Helsing's cheesy. It's cheesy, but you can't go wrong with Hugh Jackman. So I love it. Although I was trying to watch it the other night and I was like, oh my God, it's like a cartoon. So it's very comedic to me, and some of the performances are way over the top. But if you just want to turn your brain off and you say, I want to watch something for the spooky season, Van Helsing's not a bad choice. Fright Night, 2011, starring the late Anton Yelchin. Great movie. The ending didn't stick for me, and the character Peter Vincent wasn't as fully formed as in the 1985 Fright Night, but it's still a pretty good movie. Stakeland 2, The Stakelander from 2016. This is the sequel to Stakeland. Abigail, which I just saw a couple months ago, came out, 2024 this year. It came out earlier this year, and I saw it, a couple months ago. It was a really good time. Man, I don't know how much blood they used in that movie, but it was way over the top. But again, it was kind of comedic. Interview with a Vampire by Neil Jordan, 1994, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. I don't know if I'm going to get any hate for this. Hopefully I won't get any hate because everybody's been really cool on here. Twilight from 2008. Now, there's a reason I like this film. I detest the entire series. The book wasn't written. It's not that well written, but it's entertaining. I read the first one. But I love the director, Catherine, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name right now, and I don't have it up. But the director directed some really great films. One of my favorite films was Lords of Dogtown, about the skateboarding revolution of the 70s. So when I heard that she was going to direct this, I said, you know what, I'm in. I'm going to watch this movie no matter what. And the first one, before it really became a thing, I enjoyed it. It's cheesy. The sparkly vampire. But, the two leads, they're committed to their performances. And if you've read the book, you know that they kind of inhabit those characters. So anyway, there's that. All right, The Hunger from 1983, starring a young David Carradine. Here is Near Dark, 1987. Oh, directed by Catherine Bigelow. Great vampire film. This is like a neo-Western vampire film, and it stars some of the cast from Aliens: Bill Paxton, Janet Goldberg, I think that's her name. You know, she played Vasquez, and of course Lance Henriksen, fabulous. Fright Night 2, 1988. Not a lot of people saw this sequel, and I remember I saw it at the theater, and it picks up 4 years after the events of Fright Night, the 1985 one. And I think it was great. I mean, it wasn't as great as the first one, but I think it's a worthy sequel. And the effects are still great. And then Fright Night 2, New Blood. Now, this is a movie that came out in 2013. And it's weird because it's not a remake. It's not a sequel. But there still is a Charlie Brewster character. But they transport everybody to Yugoslavia or somewhere. It's some European country. And you know, the aesthetics are cool, the environment, the acting's not bad. I mean, you know, the effects are pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, honestly, it's better than Twilight, you know, in terms of a vampire film, because they're actually vampires. You know, they look like real vampires. But it was definitely an interesting film. All right, now that we've done that, let's talk about werewolf movies. Now, I don't have as many werewolf movies on this list, but all of these are what I consider Gothic and have those Gothic tropes. We're going to dive right into it. My favorite werewolf film. It used to be American Werewolf in London. That's number 2. But The Wolfman from 2010, starring Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt, and Anthony Hopkins. I love this movie. I mean, it is a Gothic horror movie through and through. And I've done my own, one complete show about The Wolfman. I love it. Now, if you watch this film, watch the unrated version. So don't watch the theatrical cut because you're going to feel like you're missing something. But on the unrated version, it's awesome. It fills in some blanks. It's got a longer runtime and it doesn't feel like padding. So I love this film. So if you like werewolves and you want to see werewolf transformations. Oh, and Rick Baker, who was the FX magician who worked on An American Werewolf in London. He did the makeup effects for this. Now there are CGI transformations, but for me, they're not that bad. I don't mind them. I mean, sure, I wish they'd been done with practical effects, but overall, this film is great. And I don't know why people didn't like it when it came out in 2010, but I think it's a classic. And I watch it all the time. Not even like during Halloween. I just watch it all the time. So then next is An American Werewolf in London. This is like one of the best, if not best, werewolf movies ever, with the best transformation, followed up by the film after this, The Howling from 1982. It was interesting that in 1982, we got 2 great werewolf films. Now, The Howling, I don't think it holds up as well as An American Werewolf in London, because some of the transformations are really good because Rob Bottin, who worked on the effects in The Thing, and other projects, but The Thing is like his masterpiece. Well, he did the effects for The Howling. So great film. Again, I have on here Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, because again, it's a vampire and werewolf movie. Silver Bullet, 1985, starring Corey Haim. Great movie. Wolfen. I put an asterisk by Wolfen because Wolfen isn't really a werewolf movie. There are these creatures that are like an advanced species, or their own species of wolf. In the book by Whitley Strieber, in that one, they're thinking, they don't talk, but they're super intelligent and they're super fast and they're a lot larger than regular wolves. But what I love about the 1981 film, it stars Albert Finney and the late Gregory Hines, and then now I guess Albert Finney's passed away too. But it takes place in New York City, and New York City in the 80s, it's just downtrodden and just, crime-ridden, and these werewolves, or these wolves, or these creatures, they live in this area where the tenement buildings are being destroyed, and they're kind of fighting back against that. It's a fascinating film. I love it. And they play it all straight. Bad Moon, written by Eric Red, if I'm correct, 1996. Viking Wolf. This is a movie, I think it's also Swedish, maybe. Came out in 2022. I watched it last year, or maybe I watched it in 2022. But anyway, it's a great film. I love it. And it just kind of, it flew under the radar for me, and I just found it one day and I watched it and I was like, whoa, I was blown away. Now, the werewolf to me, It doesn't look that great. It's way too much CGI, but the story is really good. Late Phases, 2014. Awesome movie, awesome movie. But it takes place mostly at a retirement community. The werewolves look a little bit too much like hats to me. Their noses are a little smashed in. I don't really like the werewolves in this, but I love the situation and I love the story. So I definitely, I'll watch. I like it. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely enjoyable. Here's one that's a found footage werewolf film, which is called Weir, or Where, I don't know, W-E-R. And this is like I think a Canadian-French production from 2013. And it follows like these people got killed and they arrest this man, but this man, he turns out to be basically what's a werewolf. It's an amazing film. And there's, yeah, it's pretty great. Werewolves Within. This is a horror comedy, and I love this film. I saw it at the theater, dragged my wife to it. She actually enjoyed it. It's funny. I wish they had revealed the werewolves a little earlier on because they saved the reveal to the end. But, it's definitely enjoyable. I can watch it every year. Dog Soldiers from 2002, directed by Neil Marshall. And he directed The Descent, which is a great horror film after this. But great movie. All right, here we go. Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer. Excuse me. What I love about Wolf, the end product is not that great as far as any transformations or whatever, but the way Jack Nicholson, his character, he gets bit by a wolf on the road and he starts to kind of turn into like a werewolf or whatever. I mean, he was like at the height of his power acting ability. And I think it's a phenomenal film. It's really, really great. I have a couple of fantasy ones on here that I think I added in honorable mentions. Anyway, so this is more fantasy. It's called The Company of Wolves, also directed by Neil Jordan from 1984. So it's fantasy with some horror in it. And I think it's kind of a take on the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Ginger Snaps Back, 2000. Ginger Snaps Back. Ginger Snaps 2, Unleashed, 2004. And my personal favorite of this trilogy, Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning in 2004. And that kind of does what the Rise of the Lycans does. It's kind of, I think it takes place in not medieval times, but it's like in the 1600s or something like that. So I thought it was really interesting. I actually liked it better than the first one. The first one was a great metaphor for adolescents, female adolescents in particular. The second one, I liked the werewolf in the second one. It was the sister from the first one who survived. And I think she was turning into a werewolf maybe. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember enjoying that one more than I did the first one. And then when I saw the third one, I enjoyed that too. Van Helsing is here again because there's a werewolf in it. The transformation is just complete booty. I just don't like it. But like I said, it's like a cartoon for me. Here's another fantasy film, Red Riding Hood from 2011. It's also great. And it kind of reminds me of In the Company of Wolves from 1984, just a bit. Then these last few films are ones that I haven't seen a lot, but I've watched them at least once or twice. And they're pretty good stories. And the transformations are pretty decent. And the werewolf effects, because I think for fans like myself, I always look at like, what is the transformation like? Did it look realistic or, are there practical effects? Because that's what I love. So I'm going to list these all off. The Howling Reborn, 2011, and I don't think it has any connection to the original Howling. Werewolf, The Beast Among Us, and this was from 2012 and takes place in some time where it looks kind of old-fashioned, like the 1600s or whatever, where they're hunting werewolves. I think there's a werewolf hunter in it. This is the one I've seen once. I need to watch it again. Wolves from 2014, starring Jason Momoa, about this young guy who goes to this town, and I think he's got this affliction and finds out that there's people like him there. And Jason Momoa makes a really good bad guy or antagonist. And the last one is called Howl from 2015. And this takes place on, there's a train going from maybe London somewhere, and the train, I don't know if it has some mechanical issues, and they happen to stop in this area that's populated by werewolves. So it's actually a really cool film. It's very cool, very cool. So there you have it. If you are wondering what kind of films to watch this Halloween, and I just wanted to focus on vampire and werewolf movies. And again, all of these, just to tie back to like the kind of the theme of this channel and of my podcast. If you like those sorts of movies, then you can check these films out and, see for yourself, see if you like them. Again, unfortunately, on the podcast, you won't be able to see the images of these movies, but here on the channel, I put them up, throughout this video, so that way you'll be able to see like the poster image or whatever. But I did list them for the podcast. That way you can go back and check them out. And I don't know whether they're all playing streaming, probably Tubi, Amazon. They're probably all over the place. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. And again, since this is the spooky season, we're right in the middle of October. Go check some of these out. And, I'd love to hear which ones that you liked after you watch these things. So thank you. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye-bye.